I titled today's mind map, Return to the Ideal, Burning Desire plus Detachment from Outcome. This conversation is stimulated by a quote from Think and Grow Rich, in which Napoleon Hill stated, all achievement, no matter what may be its nature or its purpose, must begin with an intense, burning desire for something definite. Now reflect back on your goals. When you started out on this journey, you desired to see your vision as a reality. At that particular point, you may have had a burning desire. Now, at a certain point after having this burning desire, you were able to conjure up in your mind's eye a vision of what that desire looked like in reality. And all throughout the journey, what you have experienced is this inner reconciliation. As we discussed a handful of videos ago, I'll put a link in the description to it. The reconciliation of divergent thinking and convergent thinking to bring forth an inner peace. That way you would have less of an attachment to different kinds of thinking that brings forth reactivity on the journey to the outcome. So let's go a little deeper into it. Divergent thinking can be looked at as seeing things from many different perspectives, having many different ideas. So we can have many different ideas, and certainly we can consume a lot of information and accumulate a lot of ideas. But what we're looking for is the most relevant ideas that is going to maintain a flow-based journey to our destination. Now, convergent thinking is taking a bunch of ideas and sequencing them till completion. One of the things that we would like to have is ideal ideas. We would like to go beyond having a large volume of ideas and feeling overwhelmed by that large volume of ideas, and finding the optimal ideas and seeing them all the way to completion. Which is why I recommend a few filters. Number one, the 80-20 principle, otherwise known as the Pareto principle. This principle suggests that 80% of your results are a result of generally 20% of your efforts. Now, this is a rule of thumb, which along my journey, as I had evaluate the different aspects of my business, I found that it was true that 20% of the efforts, 20% of the clients, 20% of the business initiatives were producing 80% of the results, outputs, and so forth. Thus, further investing in that 20% brought forth a higher degree of returns. So this is something that we want to keep into consideration with the things that we know we have to do each day to produce the results. One of the things that I always suggest to entrepreneurs is at the start of the day to create a list of all the things that you know you have to do to produce the results. And what we want to do is focus on the key areas. So segment this list into the 20% versus the 80% that have the highest probability for success output, as well as things that you love to do. Because what we want is a combination of doing the things that we love to do that will stimulate the ideal hunches and inspirations within ourselves, thus maintaining a certain lightheartedness and flow on the journey to realizing our vision. This will bring forth ideas that we can integrate into our business that will allow us to achieve the outcome even faster, easier, and so forth. Because what we're doing is we're encouraging it within ourselves. And one of the things that we recognize as we work with this information is that unnecessary complexity and convolution is a result of our thinking. And we want to find ways of understanding this thinking so we can make peace with it, so we can maintain an ideal flow-based state of mind on the journey to realizing our vision. So we start by sequencing our list of items and focus on the key areas. This is important where you within yourself sit down with your list and ask yourself, what are the important areas? Just by asking yourself this question, the important areas will stand out to you. You'll notice them. And your goal is to commit to those, and in order to maintain a certain lightheartedness on the journey, which is a harmony by keeping focused on the vision, plus detaching from certain aspects of the journey which create unnecessary stress and convolution. what we want to do is focus on one thing at a time, perform the one activity. Because with that activity, we'll find ourselves deeply into the flow. Now let's contribute to this via some insights that I gathered from the book, The Kybalion. Everything is dual, everything is and isn't at the same time. There are two sides to everything. Opposites are identical in nature, yet different in degree. Extremes meet, and all paradoxes may be reconciled. So it seems there's a paradox here. We got the journey, then we got the destination, and we reconcile it by seeing it as one. And we see it as one by doing the one thing right now that is the most important. That's when we really feel autotelic or in deep flow, one with the vision. That's when we remember what we have to do and not do to accelerate the results. This also helps us maintain a lightheartedness and flow-based way of doing things, which helps us gather insights and perspectives within ourselves and allow us to reconcile different divergent and convergent thinking. See, if we don't do this, then perhaps what we'll notice is overwhelm. And that's why the simple thing, which is oftentimes the most powerful thing, is to ask yourself, what is the number one thing that I could do right now that will contribute to bringing forth my vision, that will help me release from unnecessary attachment to different aspects of the journey related to the vision? Because what we're doing is, through the process, affirming the commitment to the vision via our identity. Now let's connect this over to the Robert Dilts logical levels. So on the journey to producing success, entrepreneurial success, or bringing forth your creative endeavor, you have a vision which is stimulated by desire. You have an identity, the person that you become one with, that externalizes as the vision brought forth through the ideal values and beliefs, capabilities, behaviors, and environment. Each of these layers here offers us insights and perspectives on any kind of reconciliation that we ideally would want to make within ourselves in regards to the divergent and convergent thinking. So divergent thinking, again, is to be looking at things from many different perspectives, having many different ideas. Convergent thinking is connecting certain ideas and sequencing them into completion, such as a task list, projects, and so forth. What we want is ideas that are optimal. And so I encourage divergent thinking, as well as I encourage convergent thinking. And the way we do this is through reconciliation. For example, if a person commits to one task or one project that they know is ideal, or the 20% of the activities that produce 80% of the results, what they will notice is through the commitment and through the process of being in those environments, practicing the behaviors and cultivating the capabilities, is this pyramid here of the Robert Dilts model has also a reversal effect. Their values and beliefs change, their identity becomes more true to the vision, and they notice that they're reconciling certain kinds of thinking within themselves. They're able to connect the dots in their mind. Now, in the Kybalion, it is stated via the principle of rhythm, we understand that every mental state exists in rhythm, ebbing, and flowing. We can learn to use this principle to our advantage by polarizing ourselves to the degree that we desire. So, the way to simplify this is recognize that on the journey to bringing forth our vision, there are things that we know we have to do right now. And it might just be going for a walk, or it could be having a meditation, or it could be working on a task or a project. The answer really depends. This is where you go within yourself and you ask yourself the question. Because a large part of this is about building the relationship with yourself. Once you know the thing that will allow you to reconcile the divergent and convergent thinking, you do that thing and you notice you become more one with the vision. Thus, what ends up happening is you have the desire to the outcome, you're moving forward with a certain degree of flow, while you're also detached from unnecessary convoluted thinking and emotional reactivity more so on the journey while you are doing that activity, whatever it is. And through the process, you notice that you cultivate certain skills. You practice ideal behaviors. You find yourself in ideal environments or integrating with the environment ideally. And thus the change occurs further in your identity to be one with the vision. So really what we're doing with this concept of integrating both burning desire and detachment from outcome, which can be looked at as different in degree and extremes in their own regard by integrating what is discussed here. These paradoxes may be reconciled to experience more of a flow-based journey to the destination. This allows us to harmonize within, find a nice balance. And it's an individualized balance because the ratio of balance of what to do versus not to do is individualized, and we find this within ourselves. So here are some symptoms if a person becomes too identified with the outcome, or more specifically put, attributes of the journey in relation to the outcome, bringing forth imbalance and overwhelm. Here are some symptoms. They find themselves trying to be perfect, perfectionism. They, in the moment, start to overthink and do things in ways that makes it more complicated than it has to be. Number two, they find themselves being overwhelmed with too much information. Rather than working with the information that they have and the resources that they have, they find themselves excessively looking elsewhere for more information. And as they consume this information, they find themselves being overwhelmed. They might also notice that they're putting off self-care. They, for some reason, stop doing the things that bring them into flow. Maybe they stop exercising or eating in a way that brings them into a certain way of being where they feel good. Or they just generally put off things, self-care and so forth, and make it more about the destination, thus neglecting important areas of their life that actually contribute. Now again, this is individualized, so it's important to reflect, what does self-care mean for you? And these are things that offer symptoms that a person may be too identified with the outcome. And as a result of it, not maintaining that ideal sweet spot between the outcome and where they are right now. Thus, becoming too attached, overthinking, argumentation, stress, convolution. Another one is not dedicating time to practice self-awareness. So one of the things that I always suggest is at the end of the day or at the end of the workday, sit down and reflect upon your notes. Take some notes throughout the day of any kind of flow breakers or any time when you found yourself being frustrated or tense, unnecessarily so. And ask yourself, what is the meaning that we are giving to these experiences within ourselves? Recognizing that we are transcendent to the thoughts and the meaning. And we can change these meanings, these interpretations. And as we change these interpretations, what we'll find is it's easier to maintain the flow. It's easier for us to maintain an ideal state of mind. It is easier to release from unnecessary attachment to different aspects of the journey, which creates stress, frustration, and so forth. Another aspect is they might find themselves thinking that they should do way too much. See, there are many ways of bringing forth a vision, achieving the goal. What we aim to discuss here and integrate more so is an optimal way of doing things. Is an open-mindedness to be able to see things from many different perspectives, valuing the divergent thinking, while at the same time taking those insightful, maybe 20% of those divergent high-leverage thoughts and integrating them into a convergent sequence or step-by-step process, so that when we go into that flow or that thread of sequence, we further get insights and perspectives built on that foundation. Thus, we end up doing the accurate things, rather than doing things from an overthinking or stress-based state of mind. Those kinds of states of mind seem to encourage more activities, more behaviors, and certain beliefs and environments that further create unnecessary attachment to different aspects of the journey in relation to the outcome, thus further leading to overwhelm and imbalance within ourselves. We also might find ourselves spinning our wheels, doing the same thing over and over again, and not really making any progress, which is why I always suggest watching my flow videos. I'll put a link in the description to those. And one of the important components that I bring up in there is key performance indicators, qualitative and quantitative indicators. Qualitative being, how do you feel? Do you feel lighthearted? Do you feel one with? Do you feel flow-based? There are times where you can feel more challenged by what you're doing, but is it at the right ratio where at the end of the day, you can look at the quantitative indicators, the numbers, and see that you actually have made progress, and a progress that is ideal, the way you want to make the progress. Or you can look at the quantitative indicators, the numbers, as you go about doing the things. For example, if one of your goals is fitness, then it's important to track the numbers, the lifts, your progress, and so forth, because this can help you recognize that you are, in fact, integrating this information to a degree where you are going to put yourself on the track to achieving the results in the most optimal way. And by connecting with even the qualitative indicator of how you feel, will further encourage a nice harmony between where you are right now and the destination, because that's what we really want. We want to feel at peace between where we are right now and the destination more so, and then operate from that perspective. That's how we know we're in the ideal state of mind. And unnecessary overwhelm and stress in relation to certain thinkings in regards to different environments, behaviors, capabilities seem to bring us into different states of mind, which is most likely not in harmony with the identity that's one with the vision, thus creating an unnecessary attachment to those attributes in relation to the outcome, which then a person seems overwhelmed and has an imbalance within themselves. And that's what we're looking to do, is harmonize. So harmonizing comes through self-awareness. We can practice self-awareness in the moment. In the moment, we can observe, qualitatively so, how do you feel? Tension and reactivity are very important to us because they reveal to us, they're opportunities to reveal to us if we're overly identified with certain aspects of the journey, which is based on certain thinking. And one of the things a person can do is take a break or release from that attachment, recognize that they are transcendent to the thoughts, and then select the ideal thoughts in relation to the ideal state of mind to bring forth the vision or go back into the activity so they can maintain a higher degree of flow. And if they find themselves overwhelmed by certain kinds of thinking, they can note that thinking down. And at the end of the day, they can work with the subconscious mind work to change their relationship to those attributes of the journey. Maybe it's certain behaviors, certain aspects of the environment, and so forth. Make peace with it, reconcile it within themselves. And as a result, when they find themselves back in that same kind of environment or doing that same activity or starting the next day, they feel more connected and one with. Now, I'm sharing this with you because I believe it's going to be very valuable for you to integrate this stuff. Because upon reflection of my journey and working with others, this is essentially one of the key components that seems to produce the results in an accelerated way, is to actually value the journey and the destination by identifying where we are being overly reactive to or polarizing ourselves to certain kinds of aspects in reality via thinking within ourselves that creates unnecessary attachment to aspects of the journey in relation to the outcome. So again, what we're doing is we're valuing the desire to achieve the end result, and we're doing it in a lighthearted way by detaching from unnecessary convolution in relation to the outcome, different aspects of the journey in relation to the outcome. And again, this allows us to release from the overwhelm and the imbalance, and a way to do it, and there are many ways to do it, is to sequence the different things that you know you have to do in priority sequence. Focus maybe on the 20%, and then the one thing on top of the list, and see it all the way to completion. And then move on to the next, and so forth. And if you come across certain kinds of tension-based or reactivity-based overwhelm, note how you are experiencing that, where you are experiencing it. If you can, what you're thinking while you're experiencing it. So at the end of the day, maybe with yourself or working with somebody, you could look at the kind of meaning that you are assigning to these different areas and find the true and accurate meaning, so that what happens is that after you identify it with that meaning, subconsciously so, you'll notice that the next time you won't have those experiences, or you'll have less of a degree of reactivity for those experiences, in which you can reaffirm in the moment right there that the subconscious mind work is working. And that will further affirm it and continue you down this path to maintaining this flow-based state of mind. So this is, in essence, a form of working with your mind, established via awareness and understanding. Awareness of yourself and your relationship with your environment, your behaviors, your capabilities, what your values and beliefs are revealing in regards. And through this process of revelation, what you can do is understand yourself, accept yourself, and if you find yourself not identifying with ideal ways of thinking, you realize that that's not truly who you are. And you can change your relationship to those attributes. And as a result of changing, you're able to keep the flow by keeping the mind occupied with a definite purpose. So we all have goals. We have desires that we want to see brought forth, our vision, and so forth. And what we want is a higher degree of lightheartedness on the journey. Recognizing that there could be times where it's challenging. However, working with information like this can help us during those times of challenge. Again, what we can do is sequence, summarize the most important aspects, 80-20 principle, the 20%. Focus on one thing at a time till completion. And in the process, if we find ourselves being reactive, note what those elements are of thinking, or we can change it in the moment by releasing from the identification with those thoughts. And if it seems overwhelming, that's fine. We could write it down and reflect upon it later. And then recognize that a lot of this thinking has to do with certain past experiences. And we can make peace with these past experiences and no longer find ourselves being overwhelmed from that thinking. As a result, we're able to maintain a higher degree of presence of mind, or ideal state of mind, in relation to the vision. And one of the things that I also like to do is encourage this desire. I believe the desire is important because there could be times where a person loses motivation or they forget why they're doing things. But if they're constantly stimulated by their vision to a certain level of degree, not to a point where they feel overwhelmed by it, then they'll always have that internal motivation, the reason why. And that's one of the reasons why I recommend actually reflecting back as to why you got started on the journey. I've had this conversation with many entrepreneurs. After a period of time, their business becomes very repetitive. They start to earn the kind of income that they're looking to earn, and it becomes very repetitive. And they find themselves just kind of going through the motions. And they seem to lose the connection with the desire, what stimulates the ideas, hunches, inspirations, and so forth. And so then I encourage the conversation of, what do you desire? What are some nuances of what you desire as well? What are different activities that you can do that can stimulate these desires? Maybe one of the activities could be hanging out with other entrepreneurs, being part of different masterminds, or connecting with somebody who's also on the same journey. Or a person can travel or do something where they get certain ideas, hunches, and inspirations of how to do things differently. And through finding these nuanced distinctions of what's interesting to them, what they'll find is they will then rekindle their connection back with their vision, their outcome. So we want to maintain a certain level of desire on the journey. That way we feel motivated, one with, and inspired. Because certain times in the entrepreneurial journey, we might be by ourselves. Maybe for some of us who run solo businesses, we're mostly by ourselves. And so we want to encourage a certain level of desire so we feel that level of motivation. However, what I suggest is having it up to a certain level. Because if it becomes too overwhelmed, we might find ourselves being too desperate or too needy in relation to the outcome. Thus, we can benefit from being more in the present. So one of the ways of looking at it is, are we living in the past, living in the future, or we're living in the present? It's important to value looking at the future so we can find inspiration, such as the examples I gave in regards to desire. I also believe in looking at the past because a lot of times when it comes to the thinking, we can track it back to thinking in our past. So we can make peace with these attributes in our past, so we can maintain more flow in the now. And while we're on the journey or the day-to-day, to be really present to the now so that we can maintain a lighthearted focus on the activities that we're doing, and as a result, produce the outcome by maintaining the ideal state of mind. So to conclude with today's affirmation in regards to this video, I want to reflect upon this quote here from As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, in which he says, "Calmness of mind is one of the beautiful jewels of wisdom. It is a result of long and patient effort in self-control. Its patience is an indication of ripened experience and of a more than ordinary knowledge of the laws and operations of thought. A man becomes calm in the measure that he understands himself as a thought-evolved being, for such knowledge necessitates the understanding of others as a result of thought. And as he develops a right understanding and sees more and more clearly the internal relations of things by the action of cause and effect, he ceases to fuss and fume and worry and grieve, and remains poised, steadfast, and serene." So I trust you found this video to be helpful. We're going to get further into discussion in the reconciliation of divergent and convergent thinking in relation to maintaining an ideal state of mind through the perspective of flow in relation to the outcome. So let's go ahead and conclude this with an affirmation. We can say, "I realize that the calmness of my mind is revealed through my inner being and understanding of connection to my inner being through the process of cause and effect reflection. I'm able to find the accurate meaning in relation to different attributes of the journey. Align myself with this meaning, poised, steadfast, and serene. This brings forth a higher degree of self-control and equanimity. Through this process, I'm able to identify ideal thinking, ideas, hunches, and inspiration, which I'm able to see into completion, and through the process of deeply integrating, this stimulates desire. I find myself going deeper into those trains of thought and those trains of practice to cultivate my capabilities, the ideal behaviors, to rearrange my environment from the perspective of flow, thus finding myself automatically polarizing to the ideal insights and perspectives in relation to my vision, reconciling paradoxes between divergent and convergent thinking, bringing forth a higher degree of inner peace." If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Take care.